What's going on, everybody? This is Randall Barnes, the founder of HBCU Post and the host of HBCU Post Radio, in the building for another special edition of the show on today, where we are talking about the week that was week 5 of HBCU football, and we're giving you a preview of week 6 of the season. I have Arielle in the building. Arielle, how you doing today?
Listen, Randall, my picks are shot. This was a crazy weekend. A lot of upsets, a lot of teams that I did not think who were going to beat their opponent actually came out on top. Also, A&T finally got their first win, but in a very close one. We'll talk about that later. But I'm very, very excited because this weekend was a really, really good weekend.
Hey, I want to say it was a really good weekend for you. It was your birthday. So happy belated birthday to you. Like, real quick, like how was your birthday? Because A&T got the win on your birthday weekend. So how was your birthday?
You know what? That was a plus on top of that. It was really, really good. A whole bunch of love. I honestly didn't plan anything, and I just got so many calls like, do you want to come here? Do you want to go there? And I just felt really loved that people were calling me and sending me stuff. And then I had some surprise guests come to the house. So it's still a good week. Even though it's October, it's still my birthday week. So all you guys, if y'all want to send your well wishes and all that good stuff, you guys know where to find me. So it's been good. It's 25 hit me real quick. Like them joints jointing. 25 hit me.
It does. I tell you that much. Ari had all these special guests. It was like Colorado football game, man. It's crazy. You know what I'm saying? All the special guests, yeah. It was like Colorado football game. Like everybody was there. Listen, we love to see it. But listen, Arielle had the best birthday present from me. I'm saying here's the reason why. Because she got the game of the year as her game of the week. Campbell versus North Carolina Central. I don't know what game is going to be better than this. North Carolina Central had a comeback win, 49-48 over Campbell, who beat them 48-18 last year. So Arielle, listen, the floor is yours. Talk to us about this game. It was epic. Tell us what you were thinking about it.
I was literally at work hooping and hollering because not only was Davius Richards back, which was great. I'm excited that he got to play that game because honestly, I don't know if they would have been able to have that overtime win without him. And then also you beat Campbell, who swept most HBCUs last year in a surprising appearance, everybody playing them during homecoming. And then after that, you still secure your spot number 1 in the MEAC. Nobody is touching you. Nobody is close to you. Howard can't even describe what it may feel like if they don't get this second position or get back into the rankings again. So I'm super, super excited for them. Just like you said, Randall, they won a 49-48 overtime win. It was a shootout battle from the first quarter to the fourth, going back and forth. And then for a second, Campbell was actually leading them. And then Central came on top, where it was 35-42. We were having a really good game. I said, okay, Central, all you have to do is close this out. They were shut out 5 minutes until the fourth quarter, and Campbell came back with a last-minute touchdown, sending it into overtime. Now, for everybody that doesn't know, Central actually has a really good record when it comes to overtime wins. They are 3 or 4 winning in the overtime. So it's not uncharted territory for Central to go in and try to win it. And also in college football, it's just, it's not like the NFL, the first team to score into overtime wins or the first team to make a point in overtime wins. That doesn't matter. Each team on the side of the ball will get a chance. And unfortunately, it kind of scared me because Campbell scored first, but they missed that extra point. So as Central came back, they scored that touchdown and they scored the extra point, beating Campbell in an ultimate win. And honestly, I don't think it was the mistakes that Central had made when it came to winning this game. I honestly just think it was really, really good competition. People forget that Campbell is a really, really nice school. They have an amazing quarterback. They have an amazing defense, which shut out Central a lot of the times during the game. And then they also kind of had some of the same stats when you actually look at them. They had the same amount of first down conversions, 18-20, same amount of yards, just a couple of differences on the field. And then if you look at these two quarterbacks, you have Williams on Campbell's side, 20 out of 26, 302 yards, 5 touchdowns in this one game. I think that interception that he threw may have kind of teetered if they were going to win or not. I mean, they still came back for an overtime win, so that touchdown really didn't matter. But if you look at Davius Richard, you have him only rushing for 1 touchdown, which is kind of weird for him, but he led in rushing yards throughout the whole game. 21 out of 34 yards, 24 out of 34 pass attempts and completions, 265 yards, These men were just balling out of nowhere. Shout out to Latrell Collier that helped him out. Shout out to Smith who helped him out in receiving yards. A big game for Richard, which was really, really great, and Davius Richard for rushing yards. He scored almost most of the touchdowns during the game. So, like I said, it's really good having them back, and it was a really, really close competition. I'm just glad Central ended up on top. Randall, let me tell you, if you didn't watch this game, hopefully they don't take it down before you watch it, because let me tell you, I had to rewind it and run it back so many times. This to me honestly beats out this South Carolina and Central game. The only reason why I said that is a big factor coming up this season is because that was the first team that gave Central their loss, that almost put them in that losing position against Howard until Howard lost his last 2 games in conference. So if Central keeps this way up and if Davius Richards stays healthy and he rushes more and uses his leg strength like he had to against Campbell, because they were working him really, really well, especially in that pass rush, I think they will be absolutely perfect. But let me tell you, best birthday gift ever to have this overtime win game. I think that was just the theme of this weekend. NFL to college to high school, overtime wins. And I absolutely loved it.
When I tell you, just watching that game, it was a surreal experience because I tweeted out that I didn't have on my bingo card Campbell beating North Carolina Central again. And I'm like, it's enough time to come back. And I called it. I said, listen, it's halftime. The game's not over. You have 30 minutes of game time to get this game back within reach where you can get it. And I had, Josh. Of course, Josh was on the program back in January. He's a North Carolina Central alum. He broke down that North Carolina Central season. He tweeted me. He said, just keep watching. And I said, I'm going to keep watching. And I'm like, did he know something? Did he have the script? Because, on social media, they're like, oh, the NFL and NBA, it's a script to these different sports. I'm like, did you have the script, Josh? Because Josh told me, Joshua Sims Jr., like Josh Sims Sr. with HBCU Nightly, he said, just wait. And the comeback happened. Like, I was sort of disappointed in North Carolina Central, just to be honest, because I felt as if it shouldn't have gotten that out of hand. They were going back and forth with him in that first half, but it shouldn't have gotten that out of hand. I'm not the type of person that when it comes to a dominant team such as North Carolina Central, I don't think they have to beat their opponents by 50 every time. Now, there's certain teams that I think they should dominate. Yeah, I think, for example, Mississippi Valley. That's a team that I think they should dominate. But this team, they beat you last year 48-18. You are not prepared for them. It is a home game. It's Hall of Fame weekend. I expect for you to go in there and get your win back. But they go up 35 points in the first half. And then I was looking at Davius Richard, and I want Davius Richard to make the NFL. And I don't want nobody to get mad at me. But I got to see him throw more passing touchdowns this year. He runs it in. He got 1 passing touchdown, 4 rushing touchdowns. That's great. I'm a Lamar Jackson fan, so I like that. But I know how they scrutinize quarterbacks. Even though they want a dual threat quarterback that can run and pass in the NFL for quarterbacks, they sort of prioritize that passing, like standing in the pocket, picking apart the defense. That's what they want. And they sort of scrutinize, even still, quarterbacks that run. Like they call the running quarterbacks, oh, they're really just a running back. And I hate that. As a Lamar Jackson fan, I hate that. But I want to see Davius Richard throw the ball more. Can you give me what Hajj Malik Williams for Campbell gave me? Yeah, give me 2 rushing touchdowns, 3, but give me 5 passing touchdowns. Talking about getting drafted, he might be number 1 after Caleb Williams. If you give me 5 passing touchdowns, 3 rushing touchdowns, or how about this? 5 passing touchdowns and 5 rushing touchdowns. Then you won't need overtime at this point. You won't need overtime if you give me 10 total touchdowns. I can get you drafted. I will go and I will get you $500 million at this point. Like, I just need to see a little bit more from Davius Richard as far as his arm talent, because he has it, but in a game such as this, especially a game that was a shootout, yeah, like the yardage, he was getting the ball down the field. I saw that, but I just need to see him get that ball in the end zone because I want to see him make the NFL, and I think he has to show that ability to throw the ball to make it.
I mean, the last thing I'm gonna say is I'm gonna have to disagree with you. I think this was a good performance due to he is coming off of injury. The only thing I don't agree with is that you ran for most of your touchdowns after having an ankle injury. That kind of doesn't work with me here on his Lamar Jackson-ish, you get injured and then you want to do stuff on your injury. That's the only thing I don't agree with. But Campbell was playing man to man every single snap. There was nothing that Davius Richard could throw that wasn't going to be tipped or blocked or could be intercepted. And we all know that Central has the best running game, probably has some of the best running backs, and you have one of the best rushing quarterbacks in the MEAC, probably throughout HBCU sports right now. So if I have the ability to move my legs and Campbell's not thinking about that and they're not able to contain me, then that's the strike zone that I'm going to go. We were just saying, actually last week, that the one thing that Central was missing was Davius Richards, because if he can't pass and you can't throw, he is able to use his leg, and that's a third attack. And he used that third attack very, very well against Campbell. Now, I do agree. I do want to see him throw more. That would be nice. We want to, when he does get drafted and when he does go, I want them to be able to see a well-rounded quarterback. He can throw, he can run. He knows how to make very decisive plays. He knows how to use the pocket. He knows how to snap the ball really fast, which we can see. Last year, he broke an amazing record releasing the ball in under 2 seconds, one of the fastest snaps that we've seen. And honestly, this is like an HBCU Caleb Williams from USC. I love watching him play, and I love what he does. Yes, he probably shouldn't have been running as much on his injury, but if that's the only attack plan that you have against Campbell and it gets you and win over overtime, I'm not mad at it, because that's how they play. But at the same time, maybe this next game, which is a much smoother game, an easier game where they can all breathe and realize that, hey, we have our team back, maybe he might throw it in the air more. But I just don't think an air attack playing against Campbell, who has a really good defense and brought back the score to lead it into overtime, I don't think your passing game was the main strategy that we should have used, because I've seen so many tips and I've seen so many almost interceptions in that game. I just think staying on the ground was probably one of the smarter moves to stick what they were. But, I completely understand you, Randall, but I don't see, this man could do no wrong in my eyes. This man is, to everybody else, Deion Sanders. This man does no wrong. I see nothing that he did wrong. This was an amazing weekend, and I love that Central got this win.
What I'm really interested to see, I think that's a very astute point that you brought up. What I'm really interested to see, and we'll do the picks later, and we got the picks on our YouTube channel and on our podcast, is I want to see how they do against Elon. They're playing Elon next. So I definitely want to see how that goes, because we know how it did with North Carolina A&T. This is not a shot to A&T. Just saying, no touchdowns. It's only a field goal. So I want to see what Central. I want to see what Central does with Elon. Now, I think that battle might give me a little bit, more calm when it comes to Davius Richard getting drafted, because I just want to see him in the NFL. He deserves to play on Sundays. And I just hear how they talk about Lamar Jackson. I hear how they talk about, honestly, a lot of black quarterbacks, where it's like, oh, they're running the ball. They're really running backs. Can you step back and pass it? When we know that quarterback position is elevating, so you have to do both. You have to be able to move. Like Patrick Mahomes, he had a really great run in Sunday Night Football, even though it was holding. It was holding for sure. I wouldn't just say that. It was holding. But he was able to run that ball, get that first down. He slid down right in front of Taylor Swift. Like, we need that in the game. But I think that a lot of folks penalize HBCU quarterbacks and black quarterbacks still, because sometimes, like, hey, we're running that ball, when oftentimes they want someone that can be a field general. But I think that Davius Richard, he's going to be just fine. And I'm glad he was able to come back for this game, because they definitely did need him. And I'm jealous of you, because you got the game of the week again. Oh my gosh, I'm trying to pick better this week, but I think I got me a good game of the week this week. But on to my game of the week. We'll talk more about Campbell and North Carolina Central in a second. So my game of the week was Grambling and Prairie View. Grambling won 35-20. I was wrong on this pick, because I definitely chose Prairie View, and I thought that Prairie View was going to once again, for the second time in 3 seasons, make this WAC championship. They still, theoretically speaking, have a chance, but I'm sort of choosing, Grambling to take it, because this offense, and Arielle, you said it, this offense is a beast, and the reason why is because of Miles Crawley, former Alabama State quarterback. I don't know why Coach Eddie Robinson Jr. let Miles Crawley go on that transfer portal, then go to the rival school in the SWAC Even though Alabama State's in the SWAC East, Grambling is still in the SWAC. I'm glad he stayed in HBCU football, but you let him go over to Grambling. He got the history of James Shaq Harris and Doug Williams. They were playing under Eddie Robinson the 56 years he was at Grambling. Miles Crawley might make that list real soon. He might be up there with Doug Williams and James Shaq Harris because he is that guy. Like against Prairie View, he threw for 241 yards, 2 touchdowns, 26 of 41 passing. The quarterback for Prairie View only had 22 passing attempts. So he's airing the ball out. He's throwing it more than the other quarterback. And you got to look at his season. He's thrown for 1,106 yards through 5 weeks. He's averaging 221 yards per game, 10 touchdowns, only 1 interception, and he's throwing the ball so much to only getting intercepted once. And then that Hampton game, out of conference games, the Hampton game, he looked great against LSU. Did they lose 72-10? Yes. But at the same time, he put up numbers, and he had me thinking that Grambling might pull off an upset. So Miles Crawley is that guy, and I think that he is the key piece to help Grambling get to the SWAC championship because the SWAC West, I've not been impressed. The SWAC East, you got Jackson State doing well. Of course, FAMU, we'll talk about them in a second. They've been doing pretty good. Alabama State, I like how they played. It does not show it in their record, but the defense is still amazing. They had an amazing game against Alcorn. The SWAC East is looking really good, but the West is hard to call it. But I think that Grambling is going to pull through because of their offense. And then you look at what normally determines who makes it out the SWAC West. We know Prairie View has made it in recent years. Alcorn has split from the SWAC East to now they're in the SWAC West, but they've been struggling these past couple of seasons. But in the SWAC West, typically, what determined who went to the SWAC championship is the Bayou Classic. Grambling versus Southern. And as of right now, Southern has one of the top defenses in the conference, and you have Grambling that has de facto total offense. They have the best total offense in the conference. So that game there might be a sneaky game to watch, and I'm going to claim that as my game of the week in November, okay? Because that game there really might determine who makes it to the SWAC championship to play what we all believe and what we all sort of know is going to be FAMU. But I don't know. We'll see. If it's Grambling and FAMU, that might be a Campbell, North Carolina Central game where it's an offensive shootout. So I don't really know. The defense still has to get better for Grambling. It still has to get better. But at the same time, if you have a quarterback like Miles Crawley that's airing the ball out and making plays for your team, I think you'll be just fine. So the game wasn't as that glamorous. Like Grambling really made a point to me that they're really that team to beat. I know I switched my SWAC West contender from Southern to Prairie View, and now I'm saying it's Grambling, but I'm telling you, Miles Crawley is making me a believer.
Honestly, I was wrong too, because I definitely, the way that Grambling season was going, I definitely thought Prairie View, this was going to be not an easy win, but this was just, I just thought they had it secure. I was like, okay, Prairie View, we're going to go in, maybe win by a touchdown. You know, Grambling has nothing to offer. And then they upset me 35-20. The point that Grambling even scored that high this season baffles me, because for the past year and a half, it's not that they've sucked. I will never say that Grambling is a bad school. They produce so many good athletes, so many professional athletes, and they have a really rich history in coaching and building up those players. But for the past year and a half, it just seems they lost some type of stamina to win games or to even be able to come back and win. But during this game, they almost led every other snap, which kind of confused me because I was just like, this is not the Grambling that I know. I'm used to Prairie View kind of doing this. And then you just suddenly just take off after the third quarter and you just leave Prairie View in the dust. It's kind of making you think, what is going on in the SWAC? Like, I know we have our picks, and I know that we're certain that Central and FAMU are going to meet up. We keep claiming it and proclaiming it, and I'm hoping that happens. I would love for that to happen. But now seeing that Grambling is hitting this kind of fight and that you stole my game of the week in November, I'm really just, I don't know what to think of the SWAC anymore. Like it's so much competition and so many coaches that are realizing, because I still love Alabama State deep in my heart, and I feel like they're going to flip a switch going into next week. And Southern is just sneaky good. You never know what you're going to get with Southern. But for Grambling to start climbing up out of the depths and to start making this last minute turn into, hey, we might be able to beat the rest of these teams. I don't know about FAMU. FAMU's got it totally locked down. But if they make it to that conference play with FAMU, that can be super exciting. And I think more of a realization that Grambling is back. They used to be number one. And they can get back to the dynasty that they used to be, especially from what we've seen in this game. Next year may be really, really good. Like this year is really, really great for football, especially in the SWAC. I think it's really, really great. And the MEAC is having the time of their life too. Having their way specifically with North Carolina A&T. Everybody's getting their leg back right now. But if Grambling can climb his way back up to the top, we may have a really, really interesting season next season. But I'm proud of this win. And it was actually kind of a good game. I just wasn't expecting both of us to be wrong. I think you should have went with your heart, like how you was doing last week, and probably chose Grambling. Just
I will know better next time, because Miles Crawley, like I said, he's made me a believer, and I just really think that he might be the best quarterback in the conference. I know that there are a lot of folks that are shaky on Jeremy Moussa right now because of the last game against Valley, but I just think that Miles Crawley, the fact he's throwing so much and he's only thrown one interception, to me, just, his ability to get the ball out, to make plays, to put up so many games where he's having huge gains with yardage. So I just think that when it comes to Miles Crawley, he really might be the best quarterback in the SWAC. And that says a lot in a league where offense really is premium. So, like, shout out to Miles Crawley. I'm counting on you, man. Like, I need a good SWAC championship. And if you beat FAMU, I need a good Celebration Bowl. We need to bring in the 2 million people to watch and to keep the 2 million people watching, because you got a tough act to follow last year, because that Celebration Bowl last year was way too lit. All right, but let's talk about our headlines of the week. So, Arielle, listen, like I said, Grambling and Prairie View was my game of the week. But I had to give my first headline, to North Carolina Central and Campbell. So it's all this talk about realignment on HBCU Twitter and in HBCU media. Everyone's talking about realignment, and I've gotten tired of it. I'm almost about to mute the words HBCU realignment on Twitter, so I don't have to see it anymore. But since we want to talk about realignment, we want to talk about, well, A&T went to CAA, Hampton's in the CAA, should Tennessee State come to the SWAC? And they trying to take Benedict from the SIAC. They trying to take Virginia State from the CIAA. They talking about, well, should Tuskegee leave? Great argument for that, but should Tuskegee leave? Should Morehouse leave? Well, how about this for the MEAC? Should Campbell join the MEAC? Okay, let's talk about it, because we want to talk about realignment. We're already talking about Chicago State. They're about to start a football program. You want to bring in Chicago State up there in Chicago, up there in Illinois, right? So how about Campbell? Since Campbell's playing all these HBCUs, they're giving all these good games, why not choose Campbell? So, of course, they're located in Blues Creek, North Carolina. They're 56 minutes from North Carolina Central. So the fact that they're under an hour with good traffic from North Carolina Central, that means that they can travel the same way that North Carolina Central can travel. So that means that essentially this is North Carolina Central's travel schedule, so it ain't all that crazy. In 2022, they played North Carolina Central, Jackson State, North Carolina A&T, and Delaware State. Now, they did beat North Carolina Central 48-18, and of course, they beat Delaware State. But listen, it was a great game against Jackson State during Jackson State's homecoming, and then you have North Carolina A&T. Arielle, you were there. All right, you witnessed this. A&T had a classic game of the year performance where, just like Central on Saturday, they came back and they beat Campbell. Don't you want good games? Don't you want these games to be good? You want everybody to be watching on ESPN Plus. So why not bring in Campbell? You want to take Benedict away from the SIAC. You want to take Virginia State away from the CIAA, because they both undefeated. So why don't you get Campbell? Since we're fine with having non-HBCUs in these conferences, this is what I was told, and that's what we've seen historically. Bring Campbell in. Listen, and here's the thing. They have a quarterback in Hajj Malik Williams that would be one of the top 5 quarterbacks in HBCU football. And we saw it this weekend. He threw for 5 touchdowns, 5 passing touchdowns. He had like 4 in the first half. But let's look at his numbers for the season. He's passing for 286 yards per game, 11 passing touchdowns, only thrown 2 interceptions, 75% completion percentage. So he's going to leave in a second. He probably has NFL aspirations, but y'all talking about all this fantasy booking. Y'all playing my league and NBA 2K. Y'all can't wait for college football 24 or 25 to come out where you can realign the conferences. Why don't you bring Hajj Malik Williams in the conference and watch that young man be one of the best quarterbacks in HBCU football? Maybe Campbell can make the Celebration Bowl. Or y'all don't want to talk about that because y'all don't want a non-HBCU to make the Celebration Bowl. And I understand that. I totally get it. But at the same time, hey, listen, it might be a good matchup. You have a former NFL player that is a coach. Oh, we know the HBCU fans like that. So why don't you talk about Campbell moving to the MEAC? Leave Benedict alone. Leave these other schools you talking about, switch them around alone. Leave North Carolina A&T alone. Let them be great in the CIAA. Leave Hampton alone. Let them be great in the CIAA. Let them come back if they want to. Meanwhile, Chicago State and Campbell, y'all might want to pick them up.
I'm going to have to disagree on the sole fact only because they're not an HBCU and it goes to tradition. I think it's completely okay to have non-conference games to challenge HBCU players like Campbell, like USC, like Georgia, like LSU to play against them. But the main reason that HBCUs were formed and that we had our own conference was because nobody wanted us, and still nobody thinks that we are able to be good or even great in different conferences. If an HBCU like A&T or Hampton decides to move out of that legacy conference, then that's on them. But specifically just to have these PWI schools or these non-HBCU schools move into a conference and presumably make us better because there are different colleges wanting to come in and either beat us down or we beat them down, and now conference play kind of brings the stigma that we were never good in the first place. If we allow Campbell, if we allow all these other HBCUs to come in and we beat them, not HBCUs, non-HBCUs, and we beat them and they keep adding and adding, I think it erases a tradition. It erases our cause, and I think it erases the fact that this, like, it's kind of a family, it's kind of a solidarity that we have between HBC. I would rather, I know you don't like it, but I would rather have maybe Benedict move up. Like if they're, when they are really that good, not if they're really that good, but it seems like they're really that good, move them to the MEAC or move them to the SWAC, wherever it's closer. Make a new division if you want to. Make a whole new conference. That would be okay for me. But I think pushing Campbell into the MEAC like this, it's a valid argument. You make valid points, but I just think it erases the cause of what we fought for. If the MEAC is so small, just ask school to join. The reason why it seems like the MEAC is real easy is because there's no competition. And I get that everyone is leaving, but HBCUs can't excel if they don't move up. But I don't think it will help us excel if we move non-HBCUs into a HBCU conference. Like what kind of benefit does that have to Campbell? To me, that okay, they'll play more HBCUs, but they'll still be playing white schools. And like just last year, they had a a white quarterback. Now they have a black quarterback. Like, does that make them more eligible because now it's an all black team? Like, just I don't see the appeal, to be honest, of adding these teams into a conference that's already trying to prove to everybody else that we are still competition play. I think, to me, that's kind of demeaning to add all these other schools that are like, hey, well, maybe we can boost your record or maybe we can boost your popularity if we add all these HBCUs, if we add all these non-HBCUs into a conference because we didn't want you in the first place, but we'll come to y'all, but y'all can't come to us. That's backwards to me. And like you said, great compelling argument. They are a really great team, and maybe this will bring some competition. But just personally, to me, the sole reason why we built these HCUs and the sole reason why that we have these sports teams is because nobody wanted us. And for the fact that y'all want to join us, but we can't join y'all is very confusing to me. So I don't think this is the best, action. I do want to keep them in any schedule that we can because I think it is a great tool and a great way for HBCUs to grow, to play these non-conference PWI non-HBCU schools, all these private schools, because Campbell is a private school, so they have better facilities, they have better players, a lot of great recruitment. But I think it's a push to try to add them to the MEAC. I don't see the benefit in that. But maybe you know more than me, Randall. Maybe this might be a good thing, but just personally to me, I don't see the interest in it.
I don't want Campbell to join the MEAC. I'm just saying that all of this is just to say this. If people don't like the conversation about Campbell joining the MEAC, can we just stop talking about realignment altogether? Because it's football season. During the off season, it's a long off season. So let's talk about all that then. But it's a lot of great football being played. It's a lot of great storylines going on. Homecoming season is about to start. So let's just talk about football. And the thing about it is, what you're saying, Arielle, like there are folks that are like, wow, like, should Valdosta State join the SIAC? And I'm like, no, we ain't gonna win no other game. Like Valdosta State is like, they normally are really good. And they started their program in the 1980s. We playing in 1941, 1933, 1921. Valdosta started in 1982, beating us down. You know what I'm saying? Like Valdosta start their program when Thriller was out. And like they still beating us down. Like, say got more national championships than us. No, I don't want Valdosta to join the SIAC. And they're talking about all these other non-HBCUs. And I understand the conversation because of what's happening in the Pac-12, because of the conference realignment all around football. At the same time, I just think there are in-season discussions and there are off-season discussions. And as an NBA fan, I can tell you, we should talk about certain stuff in the off season because NBA fans are the worst at it. So I'm just saying that this is all just a compelling argument that I wrote up, and the whole entire gist of it is let's start talking about it. If we're not talking about Campbell joining the MEAC, don't talk about Benedict and Virginia State joining the MEAC, and we will just be fine. I won't ever say it again. That's the whole entire argument because we can talk about it. We can talk about it real well. But Arielle, listen, so let's talk about your headline of the week. Because like we said, North Carolina A&T got their first win against Norfolk, but it wasn't easy. So talk to me about that game.
I actually I'm happy, that we won our game, and I believe this should have been an easier game than what it was, A&T. But a win is a win. If a win is a win, but this win was actually really, really hard to get. And if you look at these stats, A&T had a total of 373 yards. Norfolk had 395. We had 2 turnovers. They had 1. We only had 15 first downs, and they had 21. If you look at these numbers, Norfolk should have won. They should have beat us entirely. But A&T took an early lead when it came into the third quarter, going up 28-20. All of a sudden, Norfolk wants to make a comeback, and I think the defense just lost it at A&T because specifically our offense, and they tried actually a new quarterback this past game, and he looked really, really well against them. There is nothing wrong with the main quarterback that we have, but I just don't think there was much proficiency having him there, and there wasn't a lot of scoring while he was there. So when we look at these stats and we look at what Kevin White was able to do, 6 out of 10 attempts, not bad, 98 yards, but 1 interception. That's a little bit better from the previous quarterback who was averaging almost 2 interceptions a game, and about a fourth of that less when it comes to pass and completions. His yards, though, are absolutely amazing, pushing them downfield. But the difference between White and our first QB It's just the attempts and the amount of completions and the ability to execute the ball and get to the players so that way we can move. And I think that's one things that we saw with A&T, the improvement of moving down the field and actually scoring while getting to the red zone. But allowing excuse me, allowing Norfolk to kind of come back towards this third quarter. You go up into the third quarter 21-12. You ended 28-12. Sound a little familiar, Randall, doesn't it, with the Falcons 28-3. And then they just start scoring points on you. They score a touchdown, then they score a field goal, and then they score another touchdown. You're lucky that A&T scored on that 2-point conversion, so that way even if Norfolk decided to come back, it would still be a 2-point game. I think A&T is a little too close for comfort because I don't think Norfolk is that great of a school to even put it this close of a game. I think there is a lack of urgency on that defense because there are a lot of passes that should have been knocked down. There were a lot of flags that should have been thrown specifically. I think A&T is on the verge of a rebuild. And that's sad to say. Not to make it last minute into the playoffs and then lose was one thing, but to have another season of just small mistakes, close wins. This is your first win against an HBCU, not in your conference, since you have just moved to the CAA conference. Is upsetting, and it also shows that maybe this team, who we picked, who we recruited, who we have as coach, needs to be rebuilt altogether. And I know we've had those years, me going to A&T for 4 years, I've never seen it, but I think now is the time for AT to really consider what kind of team they want to be and what kind of conference this is and how they need to play next year. Because for this to be your first win against a non-conference opponent, against the HBCU opponent, and only win by 2 points, that's the question of what kind of coaching is going on, and also what do our players need? What do we look like? What kind of realignment within the team, not within conferences, needs to happen? I just thought this game was a little too close for comfort, and I believe A&T has some really, really soul searching to do. It was super sloppy. Interceptions. Luckily, there was one, but there could have been several. And a comeback from a team that, I mean, Norfolk is 2-3, but a team that doesn't necessarily have the best passing yards and the best passing quarterback is a little scary to me. And I'm afraid that this is not the A&T, unfortunately, that I went to school with, but this is the A&T that really needs to look at what positions and what are we weak in, so that way we can at least finish the season strong, because this is not a great start to one of the most impeccable and life-changing times that's happening at A&T.
I feel you. And when I look at the development of strong athletic programs, I think that every sports team has a high and a low. And I think you're going to see that consistently when it comes to football. And of course, the context is you have North Carolina A&T that left the MEAC. Then they went to the Big South, and they did well in the Big South. Now they're in the CAA, which is, of course, a harder conference, but they've not really truly gotten into conference play. Of course, they lose against North Carolina Central. Then your first CAA game, you lose against Elon. But I think that we could be seeing history repeat itself a little bit. And I'm going to explain why I say that. So in 2003, North Carolina A&T went 10-3. Then the years following, 2004, 3-8, 2005, 3-8, 2006, 0-11, 2007, 0-11, 2008, 3-9, 2009, 4-6, 2010, 1-10, but then 2011, 5-6. So you had years of A&T not playing that great football. You had a turnover of coaches. But then 2012, 7-4. 2013, 7-4. 2014, 9-3. 2015, we know what happened with that one. 10-2 first Celebration Bowl. 2016, 9-3. Central makes that Celebration Bowl, but still, that's an amazing season. 2017, 12-0, makes HBCU history. 2018, 10-2, makes Celebration Bowl again in 2017, 2018, 2019, wins 3 straight Celebration Bowls, leads the Celebration Bowl era with 4. I think that what North Carolina A&T is going through is that you either have to find the right coach or Vincent Brown is going to figure it out. Give him a couple more recruiting cycles, maybe one more to get his guys in. He sees where he needs work in. He finds a good quarterback. He finds a scheme that works in the CAA because he's been there before. And you get to continue to win. Because I think that when you have a dominant team, there's going to be turnover. When Michael Jordan initially retired the second time with the Bulls weren't good at all. When LeBron left Cleveland, even though they didn't win a championship that first time, they weren't all that great. And when LeBron left Cleveland the second time to go to the Lakers, they weren't great. You look at Tom Brady with the Patriots. He leaves the Patriots like they are not good at all, okay? So, like, I think that for great teams and for dynasties, there's going to be turnover. But I think that it just goes into the time that you're giving the coach to make changes. So I got faith in A&T, okay? I got faith that y'all going to turn this thing around. Y'all in the CAA, y'all going to turn this thing around. Now, y'all going to win this week? Well, I don't know. but I got faith, Arielle.
Yeah, I'm gonna let you speak my faith because it's just like I'm gonna take all that I can get. You know, they gave me a nice birthday week, but now it's October. So you know, the next game we have to hope for is homecoming, and that's going to be a scary game as well. But I completely agree with you. Maybe it's a turnover season. Maybe it's where we're in rebuilding time and we need to figure out where we are, especially in this new conference, especially in this new time where good quarterbacks are hard to find. And I think A&T is figuring it out all the way from 2015 until now that a good quarterback is essential to helping your team win, but also keeping the momentum on your team. I don't think the coach that we have now is a bad coach. I would want his experience, and I don't want the turnover rate of a coach because I've seen that. And you've seen that with the Falcons. You've seen that with other teams. Not having consistent leadership or consistent coaching and rules can really mess with the team very, very bad and stagnate their progress. But there are things that A&T really needs to figure out. What kind of weapons do you have? What's wrong with our defense? Why do we let people through the pocket? Why is it so hard? Why is it so easy to sack our quarterback? Why is it so hard for our quarterback to move down the field? Why are we switching quarterbacks in the middle of the season? Those are things that can negate your progress, but also can make your team wonder, are we really that good? And so I don't mind a rebuilding season. I just wish it wasn't this season in our first year into the CAA, but you know, I hope it gets better. I hope this isn't the only non-conference win that we have throughout this season. I hope that they do better and at least make themselves proud. Not for us, just an alumni in our school, but to build themselves up, because the way you end the season is possibly how you start. Not every team goes back and has a winning record the next year. I think there's a lot of stuff in the offseason that they just need to talk about and figure out.
Hey, I feel that. And one thing I'll say too for A&T fans is that y'all got the resources. Like y'all are the largest HBCU in America. I mean, and actually I found out in history because I did the story on Chancellor Martin retiring. Y'all the largest HBCU in history. All right. So y'all got the resources. Those resources just need to be used just to continue to build that team out and build the program out. And y'all be just fine because I might be picking an upset for A&T over Georgia in about 6 years. Okay, so I need y'all to get us to get there. Okay, because A&T's playing Georgia real soon, so I need that upset. I need the upset to happen. All right. So listen. So FAMU. So real quick, let's talk about FAMU. That's my second headline for the episode. So it's been a lot of talk, Arielle. I'm pretty sure you've seen it about Jeremy Moussa, and a lot of folks after this Mississippi Valley game, they're saying that Jeremy Moussa should be benched. And here's a stat line versus Mississippi Valley. So 155 yards, 13 of 26 passing, not great. 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. Going into halftime, FAMU had 10 points. Now, they ended up winning 31-7, but a lot of folks were alarmed at what they saw in the first half against a Mississippi Valley team that honestly has not been that great defensively. So I wrote an article about it on Clutch Points. A lot of folks are saying maybe Jeremy Moussa should sit down. Maybe Coach Willie Simmons should not have that much faith in him. But Coach Willie Simmons, Arielle, actually responded to the critics of Jeremy Moussa. He went on his Twitter and said, breaking news, I am not the least bit concerned about what anyone says about Jeremy Moussa. We embrace the passion from the critics, but he's earned the right to lead us. And leaders must be allowed to work through their mistakes, and he will. That was a powerful statement by Coach Willie Simmons. And it really leads us to this fact, should we really be worried about Jeremy Moussa? The stats say that we shouldn't, because FAMU has the number one passing offense in the SWAC, even better than Grambling, 260 yards per game. They're number one in total passing yardage on the season, 1,300 going into week 6. They're second in passing touchdowns with 10, and they have more passing attempts than any other team in the conference. So that means the fact they have like a larger sample size of passes, that means that there's honestly statistically more of a margin of error where you're throwing more passes, more of them can be picked off, more of them can be unsuccessful, but they still have one of the top offenses in the SWAC, and they have the top passing offense in the SWAC. So to me, the stats tell me that we shouldn't be worried. The eye test, it says another thing, because I've had some thoughts about Moussa where it's like, he's not playing the level that he was last year. Well, I talked about in the preseason, like he can go tit for tat with anybody. Like he put up a 300-yard game last year, but I think that it's a long season and eventually Moussa is going to get it together. And I think we can't judge Moussa now in week 5, going into week 6, how we would judge him going into the SWAC championship if FAMU does make it, or the Celebration Bowl if FAMU makes it. I think that oftentimes as sports fans, and Arielle, you've heard me say this before, that sports fans are naturally reactional. And we react to what we see versus waiting and using the information that we have to make our assertions. And I think a lot of folks that are calling for Jeremy Moussa to be benched, I think that what they're seeing is what happened in this Alabama State game against one of the top defenses in the SWAC, and then against Mississippi Valley, in which people have bad games. They still won. It's okay. So I just think that folks need to calm down a little bit and allow Jeremy Moussa to have his time to get things together. And I think Coach Simmons is 100% right.
I completely agree with you. I haven't seen a bad game at all. Even with their loss to South Florida, they made a compelling argument to almost come back and win that game. I mean, it was a 14-point deficit, but for them to even put 24 points on the board is impeccable. And there have been some signs where I look at Jeremy Moussa and I'm like, that wasn't really a smart play. But if you look at their schedule and the competition that they've been playing, they started out their season with Jackson State, who surprisingly is amazing this year, despite everything that they have been through. And they won that dominantly. And then they had South Florida. Then they had West Florida, won that dominantly, 10-31. Then you had Alabama State. Then you have Mississippi Valley State. Then they play Southern, Texas Southern, Prairie View, Alabama A&M. They have one of the hardest schedules in the SWAC out this season. For you to think that Jeremy Moussa has lost his touch and he is not the quarterback for him, then who else is? I haven't seen him be benched. I've seen him have amazing plays. I've seen him throwing it down the field. I've seen him take it himself. Now, this season I haven't seen him have quite the football intelligence that he usually has. Because like I said, there are some plays where I'm like, Moussa, I don't think that was smart for you to run the ball. I think for this play, you should have thrown it. There was an open man down the field. I don't think he's really seeing the field like how he used to, but I do believe that he's an incredible quarterback. And I do think that he's an incapable quarterback. His numbers are mostly consistent throughout each play of the game. And I think when you're so used to, and I can throw this back to the A&T argument, when you're so used to having somebody really really good, or a team to be really really good, and they're still really really good but not produce and look like how they used to be before, it does kind of scare you, because FAMU will always be dominating, and they are dominating, and I don't think the fans should be scared of that. I just personally think that you should not compare people of the past to what they could be. He's still learning, and Jeremy Moussa is still an HBCU college young student like the rest of us. He is still playing one of the toughest seasons of his life while going to school, while still trying to make sure that FAMU is in conference play and actually makes it to the Celebration Bowl because of what happened last year. They still have a chip on their shoulder, and they're still coming out there and beating these teams by very large deficits, if you will, and still playing to the level of competition that, you know, makes you think about realignment for themselves. I think they have a great quarterback. And I think the fact that their coach, and I'm glad that their coach had stuck up for him. I don't think there's anything wrong with Moussa. He probably just had a bad game, a bad winning game. He probably just wasn't as emotional, as football intelligent as that game should have been. But like you said, fans just take it too seriously. And I think we judge too harshly because we're looking at the TV on the screen. We can see a hole in the defense if that man would have ran right through it to the left. We can see that there's a man 20 yards down the field that is not being covered. We can see certain plays that they are not seeing up top. And I think he's one of the best quarterbacks, respectively, in his conference in the SWAC that sees the field amazing. There, besides Davius Richard in the MEAC, and besides some of these teams in the SWAC, Jeremy Moussa knows how to read the field. And I think that's one of his advantages. He knows how to look, he knows what to do, and he knows that if I can't do it, he knows how to delegate really, really well. This just wasn't a great game from him. And I don't think this should be cause of benching. You don't bench your quarterback that got you 4-1 right now, with basically 3-0 if they didn't play South Florida. You want to bench a quarterback that is going probably almost 70% of his completions. You want to bench that quarterback? You want to bench a quarterback that doesn't average one interception per game? You want to bench that quarterback? I don't get I don't get it here. I just think as fans, like you said, we need to calm down. Let the coach do what he's going to do and let him have this semi-bad game. Maybe he had a rough week. We don't know. But to have the stigma of I got to take FAMU into conference play. I got to take them into the Celebration Bowl after what happened last year. I got to keep winning these games. I got to continue with this hard schedule because after this they play Southern next, and that's going to be a really, really, really good game. I think he's perfectly fine. There's nothing that we should be worried about. Was this one of his most impeccable games? No. But y'all won. Take the win. A win is a win. I think that's the moral of the story. A win is a win. That's all we need to be worried about.
Exactly. And I just think that folks just have to really give Jeremy Moussa some reverence because we all have bad games. We all have bad days. Sometimes the work day ain't going all that great. This like a job for him, you know? So like we all have those days. Let him be him. And I think he's going to be just fine because FAMU's winning. So when you're winning, can you really complain? But speaking of FAMU, let's talk about our games of the week. So my game of the week, you set it up perfectly, Arielle, FAMU versus Southern. And believe it or not, and a lot of folks don't know about this, but FAMU versus Southern is one of the most storied rivalries in HBCU football that we have not seen a lot because they stopped playing regularly scheduled games in 2001. So they started the first time they played since 2001 was 2019 before FAMU made that jump to the MEAC. And that was monumental because it was like, what? FAMU and Southern, the human jukebox versus the marching 100? Like we were all just excited and lit for that. And that was actually a really good game back in 2019. Little did we know COVID would happen, of course, and we didn't see that 2020 matchup. But then also we didn't know that FAMU was going to move to the SWAC. So this is a highly anticipated matchup. It's been so many greats in HBCU football, NFL Hall of Famers, coaching legends, Pete Richardson, Billy Joe, Jake Gaither, AC Munford. Like it's been so many greats in this series of games between FAMU and Southern. And I think this year is going to be another great contest. It's going to be another great contest as well. And it brings a different level of intrigue as FAMU is red hot and they're gearing up to play Southern as the number one pass defense in the conference through the first 5 weeks of the season. So they're entering into week 6 with the number one passing defense. Southern's only allowed 3 passing touchdowns and they're averaging on their defense, they're only allowing 174 yards per game. And like we said, Moussa last week, he had 155 yards versus Mississippi Valley. And a lot of folks were saying, well, maybe Moussa should be benched. Now, I don't believe he should be benched, but the big thing is that will this game make the calls louder? because this isn't the best bounce back game. If you're upset at Moussa this week, who's to say you won't be upset at them next week when they're playing a Southern team that the offense has not been all that amazing, but that defense has been pretty good. So I wonder what the FAMU faithful and the FAMU fans are going to say after this game. But I wonder what they're also going to say when FAMU wins this game, because they're going to win the game. Because FAMU is an all-around better team. I got love for Southern, but FAMU is an all-around better team, and I think they win this game because of their amazing defense. I think Moussa does figure it out, and they have so many weapons. So I think FAMU wins. Of course, this has no bearing on if FAMU makes the SWAC championship because FAMU is in the SWAC East and Southern's in the SWAC West. So although it's going to be an amazing game and it could give momentum for the rest of the season, it does not have a bearing on who makes the championship. And if Southern gets it together, Grambling falters a little bit, maybe Prairie View falters a little bit, we just might see this matchup again in the SWAC championship to continue that legacy of Southern versus FAMU and the amazing games that we've seen. So I think that this is going to be a great game. Hopefully it is. I've had a string of bad picks when it comes to great games, and that's my game of the week.
I think you have a great game of the week. I think this is one of the best matchups that we have seen in the SWAC. That's really just like, yeah, we're going to get an amazing game out of this. I mean, last week, I think with Grambling and Prairie View, I think that was a good game, even though they end up winning by 15 points. That was still a great game. But this one right here, I want to see a Campbell and Central rematch. That's what this game is giving, and I hope that happens.
So let me ask this, Arielle. Who you think gonna win? Who you think gonna win the game?
I think FAMU will win. I think it's going to be a very close game because Southern is not just going to let them run over them. But I definitely think FAMU is going to win. So I will definitely be tuning in because my game of the week, the MEAC never gives me what I want besides last week, which I appreciate. But I have Howard versus Northwestern. And I think this might be a sneaky good game just because Northwestern has been going through their scandals and this team they haven't been the most dominating team that we wish to see them. In their past 5 games, they played Penn State, they played Minnesota, they played Duke, they played Rutgers, they played another team, and it's been 2 wins, 3 losses, but it's been incredible games, but not the big competition that we're used to Northwestern playing, and not with the dominance that we're used to Northwestern playing. A lot of their great players, especially defensively, have entered the transfer portal since these scandals, and going through these coaching changes has definitely affected the way that they played. But they've still come back and been able to put points on the board, just not in the way that we expect them to. But then you look at Howard, and we look at the last couple of games that they've been playing, and they had some competition against Morgan and against the Battle of the Real HU, against Hampton, and then they played Morehouse, and they played these other 2 schools, and that hasn't been bad. I think this is actually fair competition for Howard because I believe that they can do it. And the only reason why I say that is because they have Wheeler, who is leading right now in rushing yards, 26 carries, 262 yards in this season, 2 touchdowns, and one of the most elite weapons that they have on their team. The only thing that I am scared about is Quentin Williams. He is that quarterback that averages 1 interception per game, also with Morgan State's quarterback. And it's not the difference between Morgan State's quarterback and between Howard's quarterback. Morgan State's quarterback is inflicted self-wounds. When it comes to Quentin Williams, it's more of just missed opportunities inside of his pocket, mostly on his offensive line. That has to do with his center and 2 of his end guys. And sometimes they don't complete the block, which results in an interception. And it's not like every game he does this. I think it's just certain chain reactions, more of a butterfly effect that, hey, this is his ball just ends up on the other side of the opponent and they just end up running it back. But I don't think we will have this kind of trouble. I do believe that when Howard is in the red zone, it's imperative for them to score. Northwestern has a really, really good offense. Most of their struggles goes with the defense, and I think that would be a battle that I would love to see how Howard holds up against them. But Northwestern has an amazing offense. There is no loss there. And if you cannot score every time you get down the field, you are going to end up losing this game because Northwestern is going to score on you. Now, don't get it confused. They are still a strong school despite what is happening right now. But I think this will shed a light on Howard and how strong they're going to be and how strong competition they are going to be towards the end of the season in the MEAC and what they're going to be looking like, trying to steal that number one spot that Central is securing so well. But to me, this is a sneaky good game. It could go either way. I'm hoping Howard pulls through. That's just going to be my pick. I'm going to be a little delusional and say that they are going to win. But I think this will be better competition than what people think it is. I don't think Northwestern is going to completely dominate like people want to say. But Howard has my choice. I'm
going with Howard too. This is the last FCS HBCU versus FBS game because we saw a bunch of them before. It was only like we talked about two that were really competitive, and that's Morgan State versus Akron and FAMU versus USF. I really hope that Howard does pull this out. I have no faith at all. Shout us being on Howard's radio station for Sirius XM, but I'm rooting for him because I think that this would be a great way to turn around the season. And if they get this win against Northwestern, it makes them losing against Hampton hurt a little less. Because it's like you lost against Hampton the way you did, but you turn around, you beat Northwestern, FBS opponent, you took the opportunity to beat them. Hey, listen, that's good enough for me. And I think that Howard has the weapons to make it happen. We saw them beat UNLV, one of the biggest upsets in college football history, only a few years ago, and they had those weapons then. I think this Howard University team now has the potential to be better than that team. So I just want to see what happens. I really hope they get this win, but I think it is prime time for them to get this win over Northwestern because Northwestern, as you talked about, they're going through it. But let's get into our quick picks, Arielle. Let's go through them. So Virginia University at Lynchburg versus South Carolina State. Arielle, who you got?
I wasn't ready for that. You know what? I pray. I might be wrong, but I pray South Carolina State comes out of this. That's my pick. I think South Carolina State might have another win on their hands.
So Virginia University at Lynchburg, they scored 10 points on Delaware State, but Delaware State eventually won. So if South Carolina State loses to Virginia University at Lynchburg, shout out to them, but then Delaware State beat them down like how they did, I think that's an indictment on South Carolina State and Buddy Pugh, and we're suspending football operations for them for 1 year. Okay, like you cannot do that. Like we are suspending football operations if you let Buddy Pugh lose to Virginia University of Lynchburg in his final season. Don't be like Fort Valley, okay? Because we lost to Lynchburg back in the day. But like, listen, Buddy Pugh cannot go out like that. He beat the Citadel. Keep it going, all right? So Morgan State versus Stony Brook. So Stony Brook is 0-5 this season. So that we have that context going in. So who do you think wins this game?
I think Morgan State, but narrowly. You know, like I said before this, they have self-inflicting wounds. They'll come up, and then all of a sudden, they just start fumbling, literally. And then they start throwing interceptions and missing extra point kicks. So it's just self-inflicted wounds that come into the second half that are unnecessary. And especially they probably have one of the easiest schedules that I have seen. And for them to only be 2-3 is kind of weird. And to have these close games is kind of weird. But Morgan State, maybe they may surprise me, but I don't have faith. But Morgan State.
So I think Morgan State too. I think that Morgan State has this one because Stony Brook being 0-5, and I think Morgan State is hungry for a win. I know Yale beat them down. Like those future Supreme Court justices and doctors and lawyers, like they beat them down. Like those future senators, mayors, governors, Fortune 500 company heads, like they beat them down. I'm telling you, Morgan State got some good folks too. All right, they got future Thurgood Marshalls and Kamala Harris's, but it wasn't enough to get that win. Okay, so I think that Morgan State has this win over Stony Brook because they got to get a win eventually. Now, Central Connecticut State versus Delaware State. And no, Central Connecticut State University is 1-3 this season. Delaware State scored over 40 points versus Virginia University of Lynchburg. So who you got, Arielle?
You know, hard because both of these teams aren't great. So like it's who do you choose out of the less great, you know? I'm gonna give it to Delaware State. I mean, they're not like competition, but you know, they'll probably pull out of this. I believe so. You know, none of my picks are really confident this week. That says a lot. But Delaware State, possibly.
Okay, so I'm picking Delaware State too. I think there's no chance they lose this game. Now, we have Hampton versus Campbell in what might be another game of the year because Hampton's actually doing really good. And Campbell, they give HBCUs a run for their money, and they might as well join the MEAC as we talked about. So, like, who you got for this game, Arielle?
I think Campbell is definitely going to be Hampton. Hampton has a really, really great offense, but I don't think they have the weapons like North Carolina Central rarely pull out of. I don't think this is a win for them. So unfortunately, I'm gonna have to go with Campbell.
Oh, okay, interesting. I'm picking Hampton. I think that Hampton could win. I believe that with Hampton, they've been doing really good this season. They have something cooking up there, and they're in year 2 in the CAA. So I really am looking for them to really make some noise as an HBCU in that conference, and what is a traditionally tough conference. And hopefully they win and make the playoffs. So I'm picking Hampton for this game. Now, Elon versus North Carolina Central. Now, of course, we know Elon did beat North Carolina A&T 27-3, but that's not the only win that they got that was noteworthy. They also got a huge win against number 5 ranked William & Mary, a perennial FCS playoffs contender at the very least these past few seasons. So Elon is 3-2, but they're a competitive 3-2. So Elon versus North Carolina Central, who you picking?
I'm going to be Delulu here and say North Carolina Central. I believe it's possible. I think they can make it happen. It's going to be a close game again. I don't think an overtime game, but I believe that Central is going to win this.
It's tough because that William & Mary win shook me up a little bit because to beat William & Mary, and they're a really great FCS team, and it's 14-6. I'm going to pick North Carolina Central, but I'm not confident at all. If they lose, I wouldn't be surprised. I'll just take that loss. Tennessee State versus Kennesaw State. Tennessee State, they're going to struggle a little bit. Kennesaw State is going to win this game. Who are you picking, Arielle?
I want to say Tennessee State. They've been turning me into a believer, even though some of these times they've been a little shaky, but I think it's possible that they can beat Kennesaw State, even though Kennesaw State is a really, really great team. I've seen them play in person, and I love watching them play on my television. But wow. See, that I'm showing my age, 25. Who says television? I see them play on my TV. But listen, hey, my pick is Tennessee State.
I mean, that's what it's called. Like, it's called a television.
I mean, but
you need to specify because you can watch it on your phone. You can watch it on your iPad now. So saying television lets us know that you sat down in your living room and you watched it on your television. Okay, was it a Roku television?
See, you got to say TV.
But was it a Roku television? Was it a Samsung television? Give us the brand.
It was a
Samsung, the Samsung television. Saying that like there's a quarter game on the camcorder. You know what I'm saying?
Oh my goodness.
Oh my god. All right. So Grambling versus Alcorn. So I'm gonna pick first. Like Grambling's gonna get this game. They're probably gonna win by about 2 touchdowns. What you got, Arielle?
I'm gonna agree with you. Alcorn, I don't know what's been the problem, but it's a problem. Grambling is showing us that they are ready for battle. Grambling will definitely take this game.
Okay, so this is one for you. North Carolina A&T versus Villanova. I need to make a pick. So I want to see what you pick, and then I'll pick.
There is no pick. Villanova is winning. I'm sorry. Like this is not the time for me to be like, oh, Aggie pride. This matchup is an automatic loss. I don't see a win coming out of this.
I mean, in 2023, they're 3-2. They beat Lehigh, they beat Colgate, they lost to Central Florida, they beat Rhode Island, and they beat the University of Albany. So, I mean, North Carolina A&T looks like they're going to lose. So, if you're picking Villanova, I'm picking Villanova as well. So, Alabama A&M versus Jackson State. Who you got?
You know what, Jackson State. Alabama A&M poses a really good game. But they're not like Alabama State. It's not much competition that Jackson State has to face. So I believe Jackson State is going to come out with this win.
All right, I picked Jackson State as well. And can we agree that Prairie View is going to beat Mississippi Valley?
Oh, we can always agree on that.
Yeah, so
we can always agree.
At least Jerry Rice come back. I'm telling you, or the Jerry Rice-esque player walks to Mississippi Valley and they walk on and change the fortune of that program. But yeah, so that's Division I. Arielle, Division II.
Yes, I'm so excited. Into our Division II matchups, starting with the CIAA, St. Augustine versus Fayetteville State. Randall, who you got?
Fayetteville State, I still think that they have something to prove. And they beat Union a couple weeks ago. They won last week, so I think that Fayetteville State is going to win this one.
Alrighty, Johnson C. Smith versus Shaw. Maybe sneaky good. Who you got?
Yeah, it might be. I think Johnson C. Smith wins this game, but I'm honestly not certain because I think that Johnson C. Smith, they're having a better season than I thought they would. So I think that Johnson C. Smith very well can win this game.
All right, next, Virginia Union versus Elizabeth City State. Randall, how is my man Jada Byers, and who is going to get this win?
Yeah, so Jada Byers, he got injured in that Shaw game, and he came back this weekend against St. Augustine's. He rushed 10 attempts for only 19 yards, no touchdowns. He had a 7-yard run. So I don't know what's going on with Jada Byers. I think maybe he might have came back too soon. We have to really look back at it. But I mean, I think Union, they have a nice little crew. I think that Union is going to win this game against Elizabeth City. I don't think Elizabeth City, if Jada Byers does play and he's not 100% or doesn't play, I don't think that they're equipped like Fayetteville State is to take advantage of that loss. So I think that Virginia Union is going to win with or without Jada Byers.
Alrighty, then we got Livingstone versus Winston-Salem State, which just come off a really, really good game. Still lost, but a nice comeback win from the other team. Who do you have?
And you're talking about Livingstone. Livingstone beat Bowie. They beat Bowie. So I'm thinking Livingstone because Livingstone is out here beating Bowie. And Bowie has traditionally been the power. And I know Bowie got upset against Shaw last year, but this was more than an upset. Livingstone soundly beat Bowie. So it's something going on up there in Prince George County, Maryland. So Livingstone, I think they can win. They're going to win this game, because if they went up there and they won against Bowie, like, hey, all I could do is give that deference to Livingstone.
And listen, Bowie plays Virginia State this weekend as we speak them into existence. Who do you have after coming off of that loss?
Virginia State easy because Bowie losing to Livingstone and Virginia State being undefeated going into this game, and they beat Norfolk and they're beating all these different teams. I think Virginia State is going to win this game. And the big question is Jada Byers going to be healthy towards the end of the season when Union plays that rivalry matchup against Virginia State? Because I think that's going to set up a lot for the CIAA championship. Also, we have the Florida Beach Bowl. We'll see who's going to that. Because I think it's going to be, at this point, it's going to be Union or it's going to be Virginia State. It's going to be Union or Virginia State. So we're going to really see. They might both make the playoffs, but I think that this game is going to really solidify that Virginia State, just like last year with Union, is like that.
All right, we had some really good picks, but now we got to move on to the SIAC, and our first game is Lane versus Edward Waters.
Listen, we can go through this real quick. Edward Waters winning that game. Easy.
Woo! Crazy. Central State versus Albany State. Who you got?
Albany State. I got so much faith in Albany State to be a Fort Valley alum. Albany State, easy.
Oh. Clark Atlanta, shout out to my Panthers versus Allen. And I think we were just talking about this. So
yes, we were, because Fort Valley beat Allen 49-21. Oh, yeah. Like, he's like, oh my gosh, well, Fort Valley's going to lose to Allen because David Wright is just so good. He's better than Kelvin Durham. Listen, shout out to David Wright. I am a fan. But Kelvin Durham is the best quarterback in the SIAC. They're like, oh, well, Fort Valley gave him 300 yards passing. Look what they did against Tuskegee. Well, look what they did against Allen. 49 points. Okay, 49 points. They were on a few points off from that Colorado USC score. Okay, so stop playing with Kelvin Durham. Okay, stop playing with Fort Valley. We finally got us a quarterback. We finally got us a team. We ain't even talking about Fort Valley. But I'm just saying, Allen's a good team. But they lost to Fort Valley. But I tell you what, they're gonna win this game though. They're gonna win against Clark Atlanta. This ain't Fort Valley. This is Atlanta. Okay, this is Atlanta, Georgia. Atlanta, they got all these different restaurants. They got these different alumni. Martin Luther King lived there. But listen, it's not Fort Valley. Okay, we don't have a Waffle House. Okay, we got to go to Warner Robins. Okay, we don't have a Walmart. We got to go to Peach County. Okay, so this ain't Fort Valley. Okay, so listen. Allen gonna win this game easy. It's gonna be easy.
Tuskegee versus MLK's real alumni status is real alma mater, Morehouse. That's where he is, and hopefully the dream is still alive this season.
Now they're still sleeping. No, Morehouse gonna lose this game. Not playing in the P. And my folks in the SIAC, like our different prognosticators in that space, we did Twitter space recently, and they picking like Morehouse to beat Tuskegee because Tuskegee got beat down 58-3 by Alabama A&M. But Tuskegee is going to win this game easy. Morehouse needs another year. I think Coach Witcher is a great coach. He's an alumni of Morehouse. He just needs some more time. But I just think this is one of the most storied rivalries in HBCU football, the longest rivalry in HBCU football. But I don't think that Morehouse this year is equipped to beat Tuskegee. So I think Tuskegee wins this game.
All right, and then we got Benedict College versus Miles. Who we love us some good Benedict. Talk about them every show. Who you got?
So this is actually going to be the game of the week because I mean we'll see what happens. But Miles College, remember they beat Alabama State, and then they went real close to beating UAPB. And since they've been in conference, they got some really good, convincing wins. So Miles is going to be probably Benedict's biggest test since probably Albany State last year. Because, they rolled past Fort Valley last year in what was a well-anticipated game. They beat Miles last year, but Miles played good defense against them. Albany was the biggest test of the season before they played Wingate. So I think that Benedict is going to win this game. If they win it dominantly, I wouldn't be surprised. And I think that further solidifies my argument that Benedict might be one of the best HBCU teams we've seen, and they have the best defense in HBCU football. But Miles could give them a run for their money. This game's going to be on the Griot. So, check your cable listings for sure. But I'm going to be watching, and I think Benedict wins this game, but it's going to be a good one.
All righty, and last but not least, Savannah State versus Fort Valley. Randall, who you got?
Oh, we owe them. We owe Savannah State because they're the reason why we didn't make the playoffs. And I said this. They're the reason why we didn't make the playoffs and we didn't get the honor of losing to Delta State. They're the reason why we didn't make the playoffs and lose to Delta State. So, listen, we can say we made the playoffs. Yeah, Coach Sean Gibbs from North Carolina A&T, won championships back in the day with North Carolina A&T. He could have led us to the playoffs his first season, and Savannah State ruined that. And we ruined that against Savannah State because we really should have won that game. I was actually in attendance at that game, and we definitely would have lost to Delta State. Let's be real. We weren't beating Delta State. Like Patrick Shegard was that guy. We weren't beating Delta State. When we have gotten beat like 40 points, I don't know. But I don't know who got beat by 40 points. However, we definitely would have lost. But I'm picking Fort Valley for this one. Savannah State is struggling, and I think it's going to take a little bit for them to get it together. They still have Jaden Adams. Jaden Adams had a real good game against Edward Waters last week. They lost 26-25 Savannah State. Fort Valley's coming off of a dominant win. And then after that, we play Benedict on ESPN2. So I think Fort Valley's going to win this game. I'm nervous about next week, but I think Fort Valley wins this game. So Arielle, great show on today. Listen, where can we find you on social media?
You can find me on social media to wish me happy birthday and to put me in the hot seat on Instagram at __.martyrdane_Ari. Put me in the hot seat on Twitter at @screery__, or follow me on my website at theunexopinion.weebly.com.
Like what you hear?
Yeah.
Subscribe to HBCU Pulse Radio on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Also, head to HBCUPulse.com to stay up to date on what's going on in the HBCU community. Thank you for listening to HBCU Pulse Radio.